Welcome to the Naked Life Podcast, where stripping is a way of life. I'm your host, Lo Wentworth. Shall we get started? Because I know you're ready. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited you guys are here. Today's topic, how to reconnect with yourself, or healing your relationship with yourself, is like what I like to call it. I mean, a lot of the industry that I see and watch, it's always about healing relationship with others. It's always about getting that significant other, romantic relationships. Some are slowly working in the friendship realm of relationships, which I think people need to talk about more, a lot more, about either healing friendship or healing from when friendships end. I feel like ending friendships is harder than romantic relationships because it's purely emotional. Friendships are purely emotional relationships, where romantic relationships have the sex factor in there, so that's an easy buffer to not really let all your emotions down and lay it at their feet and hope they won't stomp on you for sharing all the broken parts of you along with the whole parts of you. I mean, you're whole. There's nothing broken about you, but there are still parts of you that feel unwhole. That's fair. I mean, there are still parts of me that feel unwhole as well. But they're focusing on outside relationships when the most important relationship of your entire fucking life is not with your parents, not with your significant others, not even with your children if you have children, or your pets. It's with yourself. And a lot of times people don't actually discuss healing your relationship with yourself and what that looks like. They don't. I mean, if you take the time and actually filter through what others are saying, how you heal from breaking up with a significant other, or if you get into an argument with a significant other and they say something that hurts you, that just drives in that insecurity even further, like how do you come back from that and heal from that? If you look through the lens of how to apply it to yourself, it takes a minute to think about it, how that would apply to yourself. Because all relationships start with you. They all start with you, but rarely do people come out and be like, yo, I know you want to date. I know you probably have that manifestation of your dream man. But are you ready for your dream man? How's your relationship with yourself? Because that's the most important thing. It's not trying to get that next job or start that business or, heal from when your mother did something to you growing up that's still triggering, or whatever it may be. It's about you, your relationship with you. And now if you have experienced trauma, whether it be physical or emotional, that's just another layer that you get to work through. It's not fun. It sucks. It's just even a deeper thing. So when you learn something when you were younger, it creates a trauma response, and then you realize that it's a trauma response. This just takes time. And I am not certified with trauma responses and all of that, looking into that. I'm just speaking from my own experience and what I've learned. Because yes, I have experienced physical trauma, which sexual abuse, and I have also experienced emotional trauma with having family members, plural, that have strong narcissistic characteristics. Strong. Both typical narcissist characteristics and the covert narcissist characteristics. I'm learning more and more about different types of narcissists. But I do have the traditional one, and then I do also have the covert one experience. So when you have emotional traumas like that, or physical traumas, it automatically, you're conditioned for chaos and survival mode. You just are. And you get to heal that relationship with yourself. And a lot of times you disconnect from your body and you don't trust it. You don't trust it. Because even though your body gives you the warning signs, you just feel like you're inequipped to protect yourself. And since you feel like you're inequipped from protecting yourself, you just kind of disassociate from your body in some sort of way, whatever it may be. And you make yourself into whatever you think that person needs. So 1, you don't trigger them. 2, you pray to God you don't trigger them. And 3, you can just get out by the skin of your teeth and not have to have an large emotional episode of fucked up things being said to you that shouldn't be said to you because you were a child, and just figuring out how to trust your body again. So what I have learned in my own practice in healing my relationship with myself is the first thing I ever did, and I call this going back to basics, was get into my body. And this comes from the concept of going back to basics. So when you feel like you are lost and confused, and this will be a whole nother podcast, but I just want to give you a little tidbit about the back to basics, is when you feel like you're lost and confused, you're not happy with your life, and you just feel disassociated with who you are and who you become. A lot of times you've disconnected with yourself, and then it's going back to basics. So what did you do growing up? So growing up, I was in sports. So I was always moving my body. So when I was exercising and realizing exercising was not enough for me, I went back and was like, what else did I do? One of the rules in my house growing up was if you were in sports, you were in some sort of arts. And in middle school, that was either band or chorus, because art class was still a part of the rotation of your schedule. But in high school, after my freshman year, I negotiated that for art class because I wanted to be able to take photography in a few years, and it's old school photography with film. I know some people don't understand that because, the digital, but with like film and learning how to process my own images. I mean, I still have some of those today. I have most of them and I love them. It's really cool. So I wanted to do that, but also the caveat was I wanted to go on the French trip when I was a junior, between my junior and senior year. And I had to have at least level 3 of French. Well, I couldn't have art, I couldn't have French class, and still do choir. It was messing with my schedule. So I negotiated art class. So it's no wonder I went to law school. But then when I realized that art was missing in my life, I just started coloring. I would buy canvases of paint. I'm more of an abstract person. I do want to get back in doing realistic drawings, maybe not so much paintings, but realistic drawings, because if I took the time, I could be really good with that. I know that. Eventually, bucket list. But when I realized that, then I started incorporating it. Then I started feeling whole enough that I was taking care of myself, whole enough that I was connecting to myself. But that's not the first step in healing your relationship with yourself. It can be part of the first step, but it is not the first step. So the first step in healing your relationship with yourself is getting back into your body, doing intentional movements. So when I had my literal quarter-life crisis, I was 25 at the time. Some could say I had my Saturn return early, which I just feel like up until now, has just been one big Saturn return for the past 7 years. So I was 25 at the time. Just got done taking the bar, broke up with my boyfriend at the time, who I convinced myself was the one. Keyword, convinced. Realized I didn't want to be an attorney. I didn't end up moving up to Minnesota like I planned. But during that time, I started yoga teacher's training. So I'm a certified yoga teacher. And that caused me to get back in my body with intentional movements. Intentional. Because when you're going through this training, they're teaching you the proper alignment of your body to avoid injury and how your body will support you. So chaturanga, which it flows into up dog and then down dog. So when someone says chaturanga in a class, they just automatically know, like they go to the half push-up. Half push-up is actually a chaturanga. That's the chaturanga. And then you push up into upward dog, then you go back into downward dog. But you have to get the placement of your hands, your shoulders, and your elbows correct to be able to do that properly without injuring your shoulders. Also, one of the things you need to become aware of is when you go to that half push-up in a chaturanga, you can't swoop and go up, or like swoop up and lift your chest up. No, it's a push-up and you're opening your chest that way. You're pushing up and opening your chest up. So you're not creating that rotation, which has strain on your shoulders. That's just one example. But I mean, yoga got me intentional in my body, intentional in my movements. It doesn't have to be yoga. It could be, I don't know, CrossFit or weight training or Krav Maga, boxing, or even walking, running. I mean, walking can be as simple. It's intentional movements. It is checking in with your body, how you're moving. I like to go hiking a lot of the times, and it's a trusting my intuition and understanding like how my body moves on the different terrain, because when you hike, your terrain's not flat. It's not flat like if you just go walk in the city. But it's getting you into your body so you are aware of being like, oh, my hip feels a little bit out of alignment, or there's slight pain there. Oh, my ankle's kind of like achy today. Oh, what's going on like with my back? It's just getting you aware into your body and reconnecting. The second step is to connect and build trust with your intuition. So this can also happen at the same time with one. It's kind of simultaneous. It's not like being like you get into your body and you're not trusting your intuition. No, with yoga, you get into your body and you have to trust your intuition. You have to check it and understand, like, can I do chaturanga today, or am I just good with just staying in a high plank and then going up to up dog? Or do I really want to do the headstand today? Like, is my body really feeling it? And is checking in with your intuition and trusting it and following it. And so one of the things I would do to rebuild my intuition and trust that is also similar to the fact of like going back to basics. It's like, where in my life in the past do I trust my intuition wholeheartedly? I don't second guess it. I just trust it and go. It's being in the woods, hiking. Wholeheartedly trust myself in the woods, hiking. I called it going off-roading because I wouldn't follow the trails. I rarely follow the trails. So I would go into the woods and just trust. My phone would be with me, yes, but it would be on airplane mode because energetically it cut me off from the world. But in case something were to happen, it was there with me. And over time, I started to learn that by trusting myself in the woods, I would never come back. I would come back to the same spot where I started, but I would never come back the same way. There wouldn't be any backpedaling all the way back. It wouldn't be like, oh, I've walked a half mile. Okay, I'll turn around and walk back that half mile for a mile. No, it would be one big old loop. And then I wouldn't actually be able to feel complete with my hike until I found a body of water. It could have been a stream. It could have been a big old lake. It could have been a puddle. One time I'm like, I'm not ready to go back. And then I found this puddle. I'm like, okay. I splashed around in the puddle and then I went on. That's all I needed to do. So I know wholeheartedly when I go into the woods, I don't necessarily need a map because I'll know I'll come back to where I started. I'll be fine and I'll find a body of water. So I would keep doing that, and that builds that muscle memory within yourself, or your mental muscle memory rather, of trusting yourself and your intuition. Now, some of you, if you don't go to the woods, that's fine. That's completely okay. Other times where I would practice that was in driving. How I would drive home from work, or from the store, I would get to a stoplight or ask myself left or right or straight, or left or right, like which way to go, and I'd follow it. And if it was the long way around or a different path than I would take, I would still follow it, and I would still end up back where I needed to be, at the place I was staying. And I wouldn't need to have GPS for it either. But that was me building trust with myself. And then there was a lot of times, so when you're trying to figure out how to test yourself to start building trust with your intuition, think of all the times where something happened and you're just like, darn it, I should have listened to my intuition. So going back to the just driving, I moved to the East Coast and I felt a little off kilter. And I didn't know why I was feeling a little off kilter. Well, it's because I didn't reset my orientation. What I did was I asked myself what I needed, and I just drove around in the tri-state area. So I moved to the Philadelphia area, and I took this drive. I took this drive all the way to Wilmington, Delaware, around Philadelphia, up through some parts of New Jersey, and then I came back to where I was staying. And after that, I felt good. It's like I reoriented my compass. I knew which way was north, and I was good. Well, on this drive, my intuition told me to take a different route than I took, and then I got a crack in my windshield. I was shocked. I mean, I didn't think it was a crack because somehow, miraculously, there was a bug in that exact same spot, or there was a bug on a rock. The rock that hit my windshield, because I was in denial for a while. I thought it was just a dead bug. No, it was a crack in my windshield. But as soon as that happened, I was just like, well, fuck. This is why I shouldn't have taken this route. So wherever that may be in your life, just take note. And so you will know as well, that is when you should trust your intuition. Instead of going right, you should go left. Or instead of going left, it's telling you to go straight, then you go straight. And then you learn. There's something there for you. You may not know what it is, but there's something there for you. But again, this can happen at the same time as you're getting in your body. So if you're like, well, I want to try the hiking thing, you are getting in your body and the hiking, and you are trusting your intuition as to which directions you should go. A lot of times it's me checking in to make sure I don't feel like there's a snake energy around. Because another fun story, I am terrified of snakes, and I'm working on not being terrified of snakes. I have been bitten by a snake, but that's a whole nother story. I purposely went to hold a snake to get over my fear of snakes, and it backfired a little. Not really, but I learned a lesson, many valuable lessons. So then, third, you're in your body, you're trusting your intuition. Now is the fun time to set boundaries with yourself and others. And no is a complete sentence as well as a complete boundary. In fact, it is the foundational boundary. If you don't know how to say no, you don't know how to hold and say other boundaries. So, setting boundaries. And you're setting boundaries that support you. You set the boundaries to show you trust yourself. You set the boundaries to show you are worthy of using your voice and saying, like, this is okay, this is not okay. That you are willing to actually fight for yourself and protect yourself how you need to thrive, not survive. You're doing it to thrive, not to survive. Those are two different things. And as you do this, it still builds confidence in yourself, and you're healing your relationship with yourself. So setting boundaries and saying no. We'll just use no because it's the foundational boundary. Like I said, if you don't know how to say no and hold the no, then all the other boundaries you set will just fall flat on your face. So when you start saying no to things and meaning no, so the stuff you say yes to when you are internally like, no, I should have said no. Those are the things you need to pay attention to and say no. Say no. And if you're a recovering people pleaser, saying no does not make you a bad person. It does not. Saying no is probably the best gift you can give to yourself and the other person. And if the other person throws a hissy fit about it, then maybe you should reevaluate your relationship with them. Because a lot of times when people create drama, have a temper tantrum or a hissy fit around you holding a boundary and creating a boundary, it's because they're the ones that benefit from you not having boundaries. You don't benefit from you not having boundaries. In fact, you have shattered that glass vase of yours. You can no longer fill up your cup because the vase no longer exists because you didn't have boundaries. But now you know different. Boundaries are your friend. And one fun fact about boundaries is that they're changeable. They're flexible. Over time, different seasons of your life, different boundaries may not support you. Yes, there may be some foundational and consistent boundaries that you have throughout your life. That's just a given. But there are also some that in different seasons of your life that would not work for you, that will hold you back. So they require you to reevaluate. And yes, you'll have to recommunicate those boundaries. But that's the fact of life. Boundaries are not hard and fast rules. I think a lot of people believe boundaries are hard and fast rules and it's hard for them to set the boundaries. Because then it goes into some of the people pleasing and like, what if you're wrong, which means you're disconnected from yourself and feeling like you're wrong. And then there was a past podcast about you're not wrong and stop second guessing yourself because you were taught that way. Like, no, you set a boundary, you trust what boundary your intuition is telling you, and you just move forward. And so you're healing your relationship with yourself. You're starting to feel more in control of your life because you're feeling more connected into who you are as a person and your body. You're bringing back that connection from when you were so disconnected before. I mean, you feeling like there's something wrong with you is you being disconnected from yourself, which also, by the way, doesn't mean you're wrong. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means there's something out of alignment that you just need to course correct on. Something out of alignment and course correcting is just a fact of life. It doesn't mean there's something wrong. It doesn't mean there's something that needs to be fixed. It never means that. Because when you believe that you need to be fixed, that there is something wrong with you or that you are broken, that just holds you back. It makes you, it's comparison. You're comparing yourself to other people. You're comparing yourself to how others have told you how to live and have this ideal, perfect image of how you're supposed to live, while you're unlearning that this is not how you're living, is not how you are supposed to live. You're supposed to live something different than what you were taught and shoved down your throat and had you disconnect from yourself. But now you're reconnecting to yourself. You're getting into your body, you're trusting your intuition, and you're setting boundaries like a boss and holding those boundaries. I mean, boundaries does not make you a wrong person. Think of all the other people you look up to who, it could be someone, if you're at work in a higher position, who have boundaries for different things. Do you think they're a bad person for having boundaries and getting a shit ton done? Not everyone's meant to operate that way, but do you? If you do, maybe reevaluate whether you look up to them or not. Or are there characters in movies and books that you just love so much because she's the badass assassin who sets boundaries and knows her worth? I mean, you can be the badass assassin who sets boundaries and knows her worth. Totally. You may not fully believe it yet, but we'll work on that. So fourth is, I call reclaiming and rewiring. So reclaiming and rewiring is noticing a habit that you do, that you developed in the survival mode that was holding you back, and noticing whatever the habit that may be. So one of the habits that I consciously noticed was I'd always have to sleep with pants on. I'd be okay if I slept topless, but if I didn't have pants on, I wouldn't be able to sleep. I noticed that, and so I'm like, well, to fix that, we'll just sleep naked. I lasted all of like 5 minutes before I put pants on and a shirt on, and then I felt better and more relaxed. And I know that was part of my trauma, because in my mind, having pants on protected me, made me sleep easier at night. And so since I noticed that I can't go quote unquote cold turkey, I had to go in stages. But going back to this reclaiming and rewiring is finding a habit that you're aware that you do and reclaiming it and changing it. So since my goal was to be able to sleep naked, and I knew that I needed to have my lower half covered for me not to be triggered in survival mode and be able to relax to go to sleep. So I knew that. So then I bought some night shirts and night dresses. And so I started slowly just sleeping in a long night shirt and a dress. And I was okay. I didn't really worry about it. I wasn't freaked out like I was when I tried to sleep naked the first time without going through the steps of process. But I was okay. It didn't bug me at all. It also didn't bug me because I roll around in my sleep and my skirt rides up. I wasn't upset. I wasn't triggered. I wasn't feeling that flight or fight mode. And so I got comfortable, and I would wear a night dress all the time. I love my night dresses. And so I didn't realize how healed I was until one night I was wearing a long flannel to bed. And in the middle of the night, I got hot and overheated, and I just whipped it off, and I slept naked. The next day, didn't realize what I did. The following day, I'm like, wow, I feel comfortable enough to sleep naked. I was okay with that. Well, let me try this. Let me actually intentionally go to bed in the nude. I did. And what do you know? I was okay with it. It felt so different. I felt so comfortable. I felt so at home under my sheets, where the first time when I tried to do a cold turkey and realizing this was actually holding me back, that I felt safe, where before I didn't feel safe. Now that's just an extreme example. There's a couple other examples where I would notice I was doing things, especially at night, as a way to protect myself in different habits that I did not want to do anymore, because sleeping at night does not mean I'm in survival mode. It's what I'm reconditioning my body to do. Sleeping at night peacefully, that I am safe. But that's just an example of some sort of habit, some sort of quirk that you realize you do, and that's a survival mechanism that you created when you were younger, whatever it may be. It may not be holding you back, as in like full-on self-sabotage type of things, but it stems from other habits and beliefs that you have that are holding you back. So when you actually see something small like that, so sleeping in the nude, not a big deal to a lot of people, huge fucking deal to me, and I work through it and I'm okay with that. I feel safe enough to sleep in the nude. Me sleeping in clothes or no clothes, was that really, really holding me back in life? No, I can't really think of a pinpoint thing. It wasn't holding me back of getting a job or, going out and trying something new or traveling. It just wasn't. So that's the fourth, is reclaiming and rewiring a habit, whatever it may be. So we got getting back into your body, trusting your intuition, setting boundaries, and reclaiming and rewiring your beliefs, your nervous system, actually. And the final one is cutting out toxic people. It's the final one. Some would say that could be the beginning. That could be number one. In my experience with myself in coaching, a lot of times when people who learn to be a people pleaser in survival mode, it's hard for them to really cut people out cold turkey. So it's very similar to, me just sleeping in the nude. It's really hard. And you lack the self-confidence, you lack the self-worth, and you don't really trust yourself. You still second-guessing yourself without going through these 4 steps prior. I mean, you could, in the third step of setting your boundaries, cut toxic people out. You may or may not be successful, but you have more of a success rate when you're trusting yourself, when you're honoring your boundaries and your needs, and when you're doing things that put yourself first. That makes it easier to cut people out who no longer belong in your life. And it doesn't matter what type of relationship this person is in your life. It could be family. I've had to cut some family members out or severely limit my interactions with family members. Some family members. That's a whole nother podcast on the whole process of doing that. But if there is a family member you need to cut out, no matter what the blood relation is, maybe you need to cut them out for a period of time. Maybe you put them on a trial period of 3 months and you cut them out, or 6 months, whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be permanent, but you could cut them out and see what happens. See how you change during the 3 months. See how your energy is affected. See what you are doing in those 3 months when you no longer have that contact, both physically and energetically, of whatever person you are cutting out of your life. They're toxic in the sense that they don't support you. It doesn't mean they're toxic human beings. There's just you and their relationship is not supportive of each other. It just becomes bad and toxic and throws you back down into whatever negative cycle or hold you back. It's just not supportive, and that's okay. So when I say a toxic person, I'm not labeling them as bad. You could be a toxic person in their life. Just think about that. You could be the toxic person in their life. Does that mean you're a bad person? No, it just means you're not compatible anymore, and that's okay. Some relationships are meant to be with you for the whole lifetime. Some relationships are not. And that doesn't matter if they're blood or not. Sometimes you need to cut out blood relationships. Sometimes you do. That's the most supportive thing you can give yourself. If you want to go back to them, you can. If you don't need to. But sometimes those are relationships. There are some of those relationships you need to cut out. And here's your permission to do so, even though you don't need my permission. You don't need my permission to trust your gut and intuition. You don't need my permission to start building confidence and rebuilding confidence within yourself. You don't. You have it. You'll have my permission, outside of committing felonies, to do what you need to do that's best for you. So that's it. You got getting back in your body, intentional movement, reconnecting and building trust with your intuition, starting to set boundaries. So starting to use no. No, 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 no. It's a complete sentence, a complete boundary, and it's foundational. 4 is reclaiming and rewiring a habit. It could even be a belief, but a habit is easier because it gives you that tangible physical example versus the mental example of, in a prior episode, I said, well, I forgive Sally for stealing my lunch money. And then finally, it's cutting out toxic people or cutting out people who no longer support you in your life. And that's just the basic ways of how to heal your relationship with yourself. Healing with your relationship with yourself builds your confidence. It's just a byproduct. I've been a part of programs and I've seen different things where people are like, build your confidence. This is how you build your confidence. And it's all focused on building your confidence. No, healing your relationship with yourself should be the focus, and confidence is a byproduct. Yes, I know it's a marketing thing talking about building your confidence and being like, oh, actually healing your relationship. I don't like those type of games. I'm just a straight shooter for most of the time. And that has been developed in me because, I didn't like the person I was when I was in survival mode, being around people with strong characteristics of narcissism. But that's a whole nother episode. And with that, I will see you next time. And if you have any questions, always reach out. I'm happy to support you, and I'm also happy to have you on as a coaching client.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Naked Life Podcast. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe to this podcast, and share with all your friends.